Michelle Wilson with Western Plains Realty here, and today I'm here with Dave Schulze with the Masters Gardener.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your business.
Well, it's a landscape design business. I've been doing it for over 40 years and started back in the 70s and have been a landscape designer, for different companies. I've had my own business twice, in the beginning and now in the end. But basically it's, working with mostly residential homeowners and trying to put together their needs, sometimes in a new house, or their desires, of how they really want to use their property and everything, and putting together, plant relationships that work really well here in Colorado.
Sure.
And whether it's an entertainment area, as far as outdoor kitchens, which are huge anymore,
Yes.
water features, from waterfalls to bubbling rocks to fire pits. We live in a beautiful area that even during the winter, during January, a lot of times we can be outside.
Absolutely.
And so, people want to utilize that. And so I just kind of help them to put their needs and desires down on a paper. For many, many years, I told my kids, they said, "Well, Dad, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I draw circles." And basically that's what I do. But hopefully it goes from paper to actually in the ground.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your company's name, the Masters Gardener.
The Masters Gardener was brought together. I was with a large company out of Fort Collins for 18 years and left there and decided to, kind of go back on my own a little bit. The Masters Gardener hopefully reflects my faith in my Lord and Savior.
And our Master.
And He is, and it goes back to Genesis when God created the Garden of Eden. He put man in charge to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's what it reflects, is that I'm just out there to I've done a lot of work up in Estes Park, and I always told people I can't improve on what God's already done.
Right, it's already beautiful.
All I can do is just add a few things here and
Yes.
there, and and hopefully that's what I do.
Beautiful. So what motivates you, or what motivated you 40 years ago when you started?
Oh
this
my
business?
gosh. How long do we have?
Yes, well, all the time in the world, yeah.
Basically, I got into this through a long, different, strange path. But when I was probably 14, 15 years of age, my parents had bought a new house, and my dad had a friend who was a landscape architect and gave him the plan. Well, I spent the entire summer implementing that plan and just really fell in love with just playing in the dirt.
Yes.
And to this day, I love playing in the dirt. I love designing, but I love being out there and actually doing it.
Absolutely, yes.
So it was kind of things like that got me involved. And I was working, while I was going through college, I was working at a garden center and just fell in love with that, and went out from there to my own business, and from there, I went to large firms back in Ohio. I'm originally from Ohio. Okay. And then 20 years ago, moved out here and worked for a large firm for 18 years.
Okay.
So
what brought you out here then, originally?
basically a change. You know, I have 3 kids, and at the time, you know, my wife and I, my ex-wife, we were just looking for a change. We love the mountains, love being out here. I went to school in Montana, you know, so I love the mountains and everything, just being outdoors. And the company I went to work for, they did a national search, and they were looking for a more mature, you know, designer who had been around.
Sure.
So
more experienced.
More experience, yes.
Yes.
And so things
Gotcha.
just fell into place.
And that's where you landed.
And that's where I landed.
So have you been in the Milliken, Johnstown area since then? Or
For 20 years,
for
yeah.
20 years.
I built,
Okay.
we built a house in Rolling Hills, and you know, this town only had 1,800 people when
Wow.
we moved here. And Highway 60 was, you know, you didn't see any traffic and everything.
So you've seen a lot of change.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. No, there a lot of change, a lot
Wow.
of change, and a lot of people.
Yes.
But that's great.
Yeah.
You know, that's good.
Yeah. So what is your favorite thing then about this area? Or maybe favorite restaurant? Or why do you love it so much here?
Well, I love Santiago's.
Yes, who doesn't?
Yeah,
Burritos?
yeah, who
love
doesn't? I haven't tried the place next door. I've heard that's very good.
Yes.
You know, so I think I've, you know, I just like the smaller community. You know, the church that I went to for 15 years, Grace Community. You know, when we started, we were in the high school, and we had about 35 people, and
So you've seen that grow too.
into change and everything, and you know, that was exciting. So it's and I think the people that live here are a little bit more laid back than the rush that, especially down in Denver or even Fort Collins anymore.
It's just busy.
It's, yeah. And so I think the slower pace is, you know, I've got a daughter and 4 grandsons that live down in Milliken, so they're close. And, you know,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Wonderful. So what is the most memorable experience that you've had with your landscaping business?
I think of a couple of them that come to mind. One back in Ohio, and you know, typically I'm usually dealing with the women because they're a little bit more passionate about, you know, the colors, the flowers, you know, the enjoyment of being outdoors. And I had this one client that they had just come back from over in England and everything, and they saw Versailles, which is you know, beautiful. And they came to me, and they had a really large backyard that went back into a forest and everything. And they said, well, we'd love to implement a lot of those ideas.
Yes.
And basically I was talking one-on-one to the woman, and the guy just kind of sat and said, okay, what's the price? You know, and that's,
Right.
I mean, and which is typical and everything. But to
Now,
get
what
to
are you saying? No, just
but
kidding.
get to to get to the point is
us women, we got to reel you in, right?
well, exactly. I have to know who I'm really dealing with, but who also is, you know, who makes the final decision.
Yes.
But this guy, a couple years down the road, called me up, and all of a sudden he was saying, "Hey, Dave, you know, I was looking through some stuff, and I mean." And looking, and he started rattling off some plants and said, how do you think that would work? And this would work, and this would work. And later on, even, I got together with him, and he was in the insurance business. and he had an office inside. He said, Dave, he says, what you have done has changed my life so much. He takes a card table out on his deck, and he works out there because he just enjoys the garden so much. That means more to me than, a paycheck. It really, honestly does.
It can change lives in the most minute way.
Exactly.
A daily thing. Yeah, absolutely.
I had another one down in Berthoud that they own a shoe store.
Okay.
And everything, and small business, but it's just husband and wife, and they just worked all the time. And they had lived in this house, and it was overgrown and everything, and we came in and just redid everything. And later we got together, and usually after people kind of, and he says, Dave, he says, you changed my life. And I said, I don't change lives, but he said, no, he says, I used to come home and just be frazzled because I'm always thinking about the business and everything. He says, now I just go out and sit in the patio surrounded by all this beauty, and he says, everything's just released and everything.
That's wonderful.
Those are the things that motivate me. Those are the things that, that I enjoy doing. God gave me this passion and the knowledge, and, I love using it from that standpoint.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really change people's lives. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but I think a lot of people can get enjoyment out of it,
and bring in God's glory to our daily lives too.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I hope and pray on every design that I do that I honor God first, and then whatever I do blesses the homeowner. And
absolutely. So what would some advice be that you would give our up and coming generations, just in general?
I think the first thing is to find out what you're passionate about, and find out the things that you're good at, and strive for those things. I told my kids as they were growing up, I always told them, I don't care what you do, just enjoy what you do every single day. And I've got 3 kids that do, and it's not what I envisioned them doing, but they're doing what they love doing.
Right.
And I think that's very crucial. I think wearing a smile means an awful lot in this day and age.
Absolutely.
And just showing kindness, everywhere you go, because you don't know what the other person's going through. And if you're kind and humble, being humble is huge, and you will be, they will be humbled and go through a lot of different sufferings and trials and temptations and but if you stay firm and persevere through everything, but wear a smile. I think you'll be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what we talked about before we started recording too is just try and make a little extra effort to meet those in our community and those that live next door even. We just never do enough of that. And
no, exactly.
Yeah. And like Dave here. I didn't even know he was around. He's been here forever. So I'm glad to meet you.
It was great to meet you. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And this whole thing, I think it's fantastic. And hopefully we get out and meet more people and now if I see you in Hayes or
Yes,
at
now I know
Santiago's,
you.
it's like, okay, I know you.
Absolutely.
Instead of just being a stranger, you
Yes,
know. So,
you bet. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate
welcome.
your time today. So, on behalf of Western Plains Realty and Park Bench for Johnstown and Milliken community, so here's to making our community stronger.